Warm greetings to one and all present here. Today, we observe World Mental Health Day. The day also coincides with the reopening of Indian schools after a period of 18 months. So, the focus of the panel discussion this evening will be to give reassurance to parents, teachers, and students that we need to move ahead in life with a positive attitude despite the adversities we all have gone through during the pandemic. Hence, the theme of the panel discussion is Happy Back to School. The COVID 19 pandemic is an unprecedented situation that continues to affect our daily lives. It would be onerous to gauge the full impact of the situation on the mental health and psychological well being of the children and the youth until we favorably emerge from the situation. Experiences of the pandemic from the perspective of pupils will be very varied. Some, despite restrictions, will feel safe and often enjoy their time. For others, it will be challenging or even traumatic. Many may worry that things which used to feel safe and predictable may no longer be something that they can really rely on. Schools and teachers have always been the antidote for maladies of varied nature. They have been the support system for students to surpass the challenges that often seem overwhelming. The pandemic has and will continue to affect people of all ages through infection and illness. Logical deliberations by the eminent guest speakers will facilitate the viewers to sensitize and be aware about the current issues in mental health and enrich their knowledge. May I now invite Dr. Nita Joseph, Head of Department, Inclusive Education, Indian School Dase, for the welcome speech.
Dr. Shivakumar Manikyam, Chairman, Board of Directors, Indian Schools in Oman, esteemed members on the board and management committees of Indian schools, distinguished panelists for this evening, principals, teachers, parents, and students. Good evening and welcome to the panel discussion organized by the Board of Directors, Indian Schools in Oman to commemorate the World Mental Health Day. As our schools are getting ready to welcome students on campus, the theme of the panel discussion is centered on Happy Back to School. I take privilege in welcoming Dr. Shivakumar Manikyam, Chairman, Board of Directors, Indian Schools in Oman, who is also the keynote speaker of this evening. I take pride in welcoming the esteemed members on the Indian School Board, presidents and SMCs of all Indian schools for gracing this occasion with their presence. On behalf of the fraternity of Indian schools in Oman, I have the privilege of welcoming the distinguished panelists for this evening, Ms. Nadia Sultan, Dr. Gauri P. Hardikar, Ms. Prakriti Prasad, Mr. Prashop V, and the moderator, Ms. Afshaan Sheriff. A hearty welcome to the principals, teachers, parents, and students from all Indian schools across the Sultanate of Oman. Once again, I welcome you all to a fruitful evening. Hope this event is enlightening for everyone who is present. We are honored to welcome Dr. Shivakumar Manikyam, Chairman, Board of Directors, Indian Schools in Oman, to deliver the keynote address. Dr. Shivakumar Manikyam is an academician par excellence, presently heading the e-learning department at Oman Dental College. He is a published researcher and writer. He is renowned for his articles on science and technology for the common reader. Prior to his present position as the chairman of the board of directors, he was academic chair in the SMC of Indian School Muscat and a member of the Academic Advisory Council of the board. I request you, sir, to educate us with your message on this momentous occasion.
Thank you, ma'am. My colleagues on the board, presidents, principals, teachers, parents, and dear students of Indian schools. Distinguished panelists, Ms. Nadia Sultan, Dr. Gauri Hardikar, Ms. Prakriti Prasad, and Mr. Prashobh V. Moderator of the panel discussion, Ms. Afshaan Sheriff. Very good evening to you, one and all. A panel discussion is being organized under the aegis of the Board of Directors to commemorate the World Mental Health Day, which is celebrated today. The day also coincides with the reopening of Indian schools after a period of 18 long months. So, the focus of the panel discussion will be to give reassurance to parents, teachers, and students that we need to move ahead in life with a positive attitude despite the adversities we have all gone through during the pandemic. Hence, the theme of the panel discussion, which is Happy Back to School, I would like to share some of my thoughts in this regard. I would like to discuss a few of my thoughts on, the mental health issues our students, teachers, as well as our parents are facing after the advent of the great pandemic. In particular, I would like to focus on World Mental Health Day, which has been initiated to promote global mental health education, awareness, and advocacy against social stigma. And in particular, this year theme, which is turned out to be mental health care for all, let us make reality. So I would like to share some of my thoughts in this. First of all, the care that we give for our physical health, the way how we can measure our physical health is not, done correctly with mental health. In fact, many of us may not be aware that it is important to have better mental health so that we can have increased learning, more creativity, and better productivity. And also, it's very important that our social behavior is determined by our mental health. So in order to have a positive interaction with society, it's very important we do have good mental health. Therefore, along with improved physical health, the mental health can lead to increased life expectancy. At present time, when we have our virtual world where the emotions are missing, there are no nuances and empathy at all in our communication. We have got almost everything virtual, not just classes, meetings, family gatherings, tuition classes, almost everything is becoming virtual. It is, helping us a lot, but what it does to our mental health, it makes us to feel like a small little box on the screen. And we become tired, we are exhausted, and often we end up having what is now termed as Zoom fatigue. So this is a result of our exposure, constant exposure to virtual world. Unlike the real scenario, in real physical scenario, we do have in-person conversation with lots of non-verbal cues like sharp intake of breath, leaning forward, handshakes, eye contact. Everything has changed at present time. Eye contact. Think of eye contact in a gallery view when we are participating in a virtual meeting. Where would we see? Shall we look at the screen or on the webcam or with others? So therefore, we do have a very tough time in managing our vision. On the other hand, if at all, if there are no gestures, we won't be able to get complete picture of what is being conveyed. So we are forced to pay sustained and intense attention. So therefore, virtual interactions are becoming a very hard thing for our brain. Finally, this results into split attention. Our brain's central vision receives unfamiliar, surplus, meaningless stimuli. And therefore, we are becoming overwhelmingly tired. And finally, we look like a zombie. We won't be able to change any of this in near future because we do have to continue our working or studying. And COVID-19 and social distancing is something we need to follow up regularly. And on the other hand, we have got faster internet connectivity, lots of robust video call platforms, making us to give an alternative solution to face or to lead our daily life. At this point of time, there are few advices given by the expert. We would like to share these suggestions to our students as well as teachers along with the parents. We often think that when we do multitasking, we will be able to complete lots of work in a given time. But actually speaking, there are several researches which has proven that the multitasking will not be able to save our time at all, and it will quickly exhaust our brain. It will lower our productivity, and finally, we end up having lesser efficiency. Therefore, whenever you are planning for a multitask activity, please take a relook at it. It may not be as effective as we think. On the other hand, when you look at on-screen stimuli, whether it is a meeting or social media or just handling the phone, the stimuli which are available on screen is going to disturb us a lot. Looking at speakers' background, gazing through the background furniture, plants, wallpapers, bookshelves, all will cause mental fatigue. If you don't want, better to avoid on-screen stimuli maximum possible. We can turn off videos. If needed, we can encourage speakers to speak with a plain background. Avoid virtual social sessions. Now, since we are starting physical meetings and physical interaction, it is better to avoid virtual interaction as much as possible. If possible, we can easily switch over to phone calls and emails instead of virtual meetings. And it's very important that we do take periodic breaks. Without sufficient break, we won't be able to function effectively. Micro breaks are required every 10 minutes. Mini breaks are required every 30 minutes. And these breaks will help us rest and reduce discomfort. Not only that, we'll be able to perform very well after these frequent rests. So please remember, periodic breaks are very important. With this, I would like to wish all our students and teachers as well as parents a very happy return to school. And let us listen to the panelists to get more insights on this matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your informative and prudent thoughts. Your presence and wise words will definitely help magnify the session in the best possible manner. As you rightly mentioned, mental health and virtual world should be prioritized in a very balanced manner. We will surely take your words into practice. I take delight in introducing our panelists for today's session. Ms. Nadia Sultan. Ms. Nadia is an educational psychologist, owner, and founder at Inspire Educational Consultancy in Muscat. She completed her MSc from the prestigious University College London and worked for over a decade as an educational psychologist in London. She believes in raising awareness about issues and challenges faced by these educators, children, young people, and families who experience barriers to their everyday lives as a result of learning difficulties, mental health issues, and disabilities. Our next panelist is Dr. Gauri P. Hardikar. Dr. Gauri is an associate professor with Srimati Kapila Kandwala College of Education, Mumbai. Dr. Gauri possesses over 20 years of experience in the field of education. She holds MS in Organic Chemistry, MA in Clinical Psychology, MEd, and PhD in Education. She has presented and published research papers at the national and international level on life skills. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce our third panelist, Ms. Pakriti Prasad. Ms. Pakriti is a parenting coach, author, former senior journalist, and a columnist. Her passion is to bridge the mounting generation gap and the communication barriers between parents and children and to spread the imperative need for fitness of the body, mind, and spirit. She is on a mission to train and mentor parents of teenagers to raise happy, grounded, and emotionally strong future adults. Allow me to introduce our next panelist, Mr. V. Prashop. Mr. Prashop is a senior student counselor in the Indian School Muscat for more than 15 years. He takes care of career, social, and emotional counseling needs of the school community. He has done masters in psychology from University of Calicut and is a university rank holder. He has studied advanced diploma in counseling psychology and MS in counseling and psychotherapy from Mumbai. In his 34 years of career, he has also worked as a psychology lecturer, HR professional, teacher, psychologist, and course director for counseling courses. Ms. Afshaan Sheriff. Ms. Afshaan is a student counselor in Indian School Wadi Kabir and Indian School Wadi Kabir International. She completed her MSc in psychology, specializing in counseling and caters to the socio-emotional needs of the school community. She helps students in their transition to post-secondary education by helping them develop soft skills to excel in their career prospects. Having immense experience in conducting need-based workshops for students, parents, and teachers, she believes that a child's mental health is as important as their academics. Ms. Afshaan is the moderator of the panel discussion this evening. Over to you, Ms. Afshaan.
Thank you, sir. A very good evening to one and all. I'm Afshaan, and I'll be taking up the moderation of this panel discussion. A lot being said about mental health. We know that this day, World Mental Health Day, provides us an opportunity to talk about mental health in general. Now, mental health has come to focus during these pandemic times like never before, as people of all age groups, be it teachers, parents, or students, have been affected. Children especially have been very vulnerable to the changes. And now we learn about the broad aspects of impact on students as a result of schools being closed, physical distancing, isolation, and other unexpected changes in their lives. However, we are not going to talk about the problems or the negative impact the pandemic has caused to us. We will be talking about the steps that we need to take to support our students and the entire school community, which is very essential during these challenging times. For us, as the schools have reopened physically, we know that by fostering safe and inclusive environments, schools can support students to achieve positive learning and well-being outcomes while feeling safe, supported, and able to act when they have concerns. So my first question would be in general to all the panelists, how schools now, since we have opened physically, can support safe, inclusive, empowering, and overall positive environment. We can go with the raise of a hand. Yes, Ms. Prakriti.
Yeah, so thank you so much. And it's really nice to be here amongst all of you. So yes, the pandemic was a major game changer for all cross sections of people, and particularly children. You all will agree that, this had a tremendous impact on the physical, mental, and the emotional wellness, the well-being of our children. The two most important activities that we identify children with are like going to school and going to play. Both these activities were taken away, something like childhood being taken away. And so this forced physical distance and confinement to the homes is bound to have, and it did have a deep-seated impact on their mental and physical state. Parents have been across the, not just in Oman or India or everywhere, across the world, they've been reaching out to people, to experts, sharing their concerns about some worrisome behavior of their children, as in anxiety, panic attacks, depression. And in fact, parents reached out to me also, sharing their concerns about children crying incessantly or reacting violently for no reason without provocation. So all these, reactions and behavior are being reported from across the world. And I, in my endeavor trying to help, I realized that yes, these harmful behaviors and the prevalence of mental health problems are the outcome of sad outcome of the pandemic. So
definitely, Ms. Prakriti, you being a parenting coach, I think we will need a lot of input from you for strategies that parents will need to take up once students are back. As providing a fostering and safe environment in school, Ms. Nadia, would you be able to answer this question, being an educational psychologist?
Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. It is such a wonderful opportunity. I really appreciate being here with you all on World Mental Health Day, talking about these issues. Thank you, Afshaan, for that question about how schools can support the safe, inclusive, empowering, and positive environment. Schools can actually help to develop a culture and ethos that allows for all of these things to be nurtured. And all parts of the school organization would need to work together on this. It's not enough to have just written policies on health and safety or anti-bullying or inclusion. When these policies aren't put into practice, they need to be put into practice. School leadership teams, therefore, should be modeling these values and enacting them in their daily running of the school. Schools can also support by investing in their own staff and offering training, as well as awareness about these issues within the wider community. And making sure that a lot of these topics are actually part of the school curriculum. That will be another way of doing it. So we're fostering a lot of these values through the curriculum. So teaching children about developing a growth mindset, about developing resilience, making that very much a part of what children are taught on a regular basis. Currently, with the whole pandemic situation, obviously making sure that accurate information is shared responsibly, that's obviously very important, because children need to be reminded. It's not over, so they need to be reminded of what they can do in order to keep themselves and everybody around them safe. So those messages are important. And while children are obviously spending a lot of their time and their day in school, it's also important to remember that a bigger portion of their lives is spent outside of school. So, that link between home and school is absolutely crucial. The school responsibility kind of extends beyond the walls of a classroom. It extends to the wider community. So these are just some of the things that schools can do at this time.
Definitely, rather than putting just the guidelines on a paper, the school need to get up a team in teaching life skills to students, which takes me to Ms. Gauri over here, Dr. Gauri over here, who is a life skill coach. Research suggests that instilling life skills and well-being skills in school supports mental well-being in children and youth now and even in the future, especially after the pandemic. So how do you think, Dr. Gauri, this way, how the schools can instill life skills to help the children grow up to be mentally strong and resilient young adults?
Yeah, thank you for your question, Afshaan. And it's really a pleasure to be here with you all today. I appreciate the opportunity very much to interact with all of you. How do life skills help in helping individuals become, for their well-being? Now, for that, we must first understand what are life skills. And one thing which, one analogy that comes to my mind in pandemic times is that all of us were scared in the initial period of the pandemic, right? We were all, in fact, life, the way we knew it, came to a complete halt. And that happened because there was a threat in the environment and we had no idea how to deal with that threat. And then, because we are human beings, we are resilient and we are also extremely innovative, we came up with a vaccine. And after vaccination, actually, we are able to function again. Now, I would say life skills do the same thing for us. So when there is a threat, there is a challenge in the environment, what life skills do is they help us function fully in spite of those challenges. So the challenges are not something we can control. Today, we are going to school in spite of the COVID pandemic still being on, but that's because we are vaccinated. And life skills act much in the same way by giving us that protective kind of an armor, which we can use to face the threat, okay? When you speak of what is it, how do they help in well-being? Well, again, I would like to give the analogy of a vaccine, because what does a vaccine do? When we get vaccinated, it is not really the vaccine which protects us, but it is the antibodies that we all have. So the vaccine just makes us generate our own antibodies. We already have the capacity. Now, life skills are there in all of us. They are inborn. In fact, I was hearing a child psychologist speak, and he said that even a small child, a neonatal baby, will never smile if the mother is crying. So which means nobody thought that child to be empathetic, but the child still is. But what happens when we grow up? When we grow up, somewhere along the line, we lose these life skills. Now, how is it that the school can foster these life skills? Well, the first thing is to believe that life skills are the way. I was going through the newsletter of the Indian schools in Oman, and Dr. Samuel has asked a very relevant, very important question. He said, what makes a human being relevant? And if this is the philosophy on which the school operates, I'm sure that would definitely help to bring life skills to the fore. How do they do it? Through including them in the curriculum. And there I resonate a lot with what Ms. Nadia said. It is very important to believe that life skills are the way forward, to actively bring it into the curriculum. And I would add one more thing. When we talk about life skills, I think the pandemic has brought two things to the fore. One is that we need to believe in ourselves. Times are uncertain, but we are more certain of uncertain of our capacity to face the uncertain times. If we were more confident, if we realized what power we have as human beings to face any challenge in this world, and if schools are able to infuse students with this kind of power, I think that will help them really cope with the pandemic. And that is something that life skills would do. Secondly, the power of connection. Human beings are social. We cannot exist on our own. So if through life skills, we are able to help people connect to each other, and that is again something that the schools can foster, I believe that would really help in fostering well-being of the students, of that, and of course involving everybody in this endeavor, because life skills do not exist in a vacuum. So we need the teachers, we need the students, we need the parents, and the counselors are the most important pillar of any life skills endeavor. So
definitely, thank you so much for briefing us on the importance of life skills. But how do we make it a reality in schools? Probably by, like you mentioned, by training our teachers, and especially counselors have a big hand to play in this role. Yes. So Mr. Prashop, yes.
Please carry on.
Mr. Prishop, being the counselor for over 34 years, I'm sure you have experience in training teachers and conducting workshops on life skills and how important it is. Would you like to throw some light on that?
Thank you, Afshaan, for asking this question, this opportunity. It's wonderful that we all are here in this platform and commemorating the World Mental Health Day, an apt day for all the children of Indian schools.
Seems like Mr. Prishop's internet is causing problems. Never mind. So are you back, sir? Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes. The 18 months, staying at home and within the four walls, our children were managing, literally, fighting back. So it's kudos to our children and the supporting parents and the teachers who has put in the effort to maintain the ethos of education, and the professionals who are in the SMCs and the board who has immensely contributed and connected with the children through implementing the technology. 2020 March, we faced it, and within 7 days, the system, with the help of Dr. Shivkumar's software, we immediately started the online sessions. It's really wonderful that we could get connected with the students immediately. There was no gap per se. And now the students are back today. I went to some of the classes and I interacted with the students of the class 12, and I found that they are all back intact. They're perfect. And when I interacted and I asked them to reflect on some of their experiences and all, yeah, a little bit of issues are there here and there. It is not that all rosy picture over there, or there had been, and definitely the 18 months of staying at home within four walls has the emotional baggage. So my suggestion at this point is that let us jointly together work, the parents, the teachers, the all stakeholders, even the students together. Let us see, it's always said that slow and steady wins the race. Now coming back, let us not rush. Let us not rush. Let the children come, settle down slowly. There are so many adjustments they are supposed to go through in this particular point, coming back, their physical adjustment, their mental adjustment, their social adjustment, their traveling, because it got affected. Our traveling system here got completely collapsed. Now the parents are supposed to drop them back to the school and pick them back to the school. There are so many things, and the food, that the many places, the canteen issue, the water, all those the basic amenities required for the children, it has to reinstate. So it will take some time gradually for the school infrastructure to completely set, and the students, the convenience of being at home, it was never required for them to get ready early morning, 6 o'clock, and get into the travel system and get back to the school. They were all getting up and maybe like quickly they were getting ready for the class, because it was not necessary. Now they have to get up, they have to be ready. And it's also a known fact that many people got affected with the pandemic about their daily routine. Many are not sleeping in the night. They all are communicating, chatting. And when they are not able to sleep in the night, how do they'll be able to get up early in the morning and come and sit in the class for 7-8 hours. So initially, let us go slow. Let the children adjust to the environment. And then once they are adjusted, once they are psychologically and cognitively efficient, let us begin the cognitive activity. This is what is my suggestion at this point to begin.
Very rightly said, sir. Go slow because the routines have been disrupted due to the pandemic, and it will definitely take time for them to physically be back, and then we can challenge them mentally to take up their task. And sir, you also put up a point that, it is the role of all the stakeholders, be it teachers or parents. So when I talk about parents, especially parents had another hat to wear during this pandemic. They became the school, they became the teachers, they became the school nurse, they became the monitors. They had to play many roles during this period. And I think playing these many roles would have definitely caused incredible stress to parents as well. Being with their children 24/7, because everyone needs a time of their own. But this pandemic, had a different side to this. So Ms. Prakriti, would you like to talk about, the struggles of parents during this period? And now when the students are back to school, what are some strategies that you might suggest them to help their children as well as themselves to get back to what we call the new normal?
Yeah, thanks, Afshaan. Yeah, right. You're extremely right that, things with schools opening up, children back to school, but things will not spring back to normalcy instantly. So for all of us as parents, educators, we have to keep in mind that the children are coming back to school with a fragile state of mind. With having gone through those 18 months of confinement and all, has taken a toll on their mental health. So there is that pall of uncertainty, and why did this happen? There's so many unanswered questions that are still there. So we as parents need to be extra cautious, as educators also keeping in mind their state of affairs, their health, the mental state. So 3-4 things that I always recommend parents is to be available for your children. Ensure that they know that you are topmost priority. And another very important thing is communication is the key word here. So keeping all channels of communication open and green. And here when I talk about communication, it has to be a two-way communication. Most of the times what happens is we are in the parent mode. We are shouting instructions, screaming, telling them what to do. And what happens is the children switch off. So it has to be a two-way affair where we have to ensure that the children are also sharing. So we need to encourage our children to share more. And so listening more is important here than just talking to our children. And another thing is to watch out for the body language, because communication just doesn't happen verbally. It also happens through the body vibrations that we send across, the body language. So I always tell parents that check your self-talk. What is the self-talk that is going in your mind? Those vibrations travel to your children faster than the spoken word. So these are the few things that I would say. And then most importantly here is also to be demonstrative of our love and affection. How do we demonstrate? Holding hands and hugging them. I think hug is something which I would recommend all parents to do. We all love to be hugged. So please be generous with your hugs.
And I think as Indian parents, most of them are a little shy or resistant towards showing affection to their children.
Yeah, right, you're right. So maybe once, since you haven't done it for so long, you can't just one fine day go and hug your child. You can begin with holding their hands. That also goes a long way. And then doing small little things to demonstrate your love. That will go a long way in building their sense of confidence and self-worth also in these times.
Thank you so much, Ms. Prakriti. And you reiterated one very important factor, that look for signs. Mr. Prishov has also stated that students were back today and he was looking out for signs that how students are reacting. Most of them seemed okay. But we all know that there are some, telltale signs that shows a student is in psychological distress. How to identify such signs? Ms. Nadia, would you like to speak about those signs in children?
Okay, so I think initially what we need to do is schools need to look at it as first as a whole school issue. So in terms of, again, there needs to be, before looking at individual students, we need to have universal support for all students across the board. Okay, because it's a pandemic. We've all been through a lot. And we're not saying that every child's going to have the same experience. As you said, all children might have very different experiences. We can't, some children might have actually enjoyed the time with their parents and might have had a positive experience out of it. So we can't make those assumptions. But on the whole, we know that there have been some negative experience as well. So I think the first thing is to make sure that we've got universal support for all. Then there's likely to be a smaller group that might need that additional input and support that could be provided within the school itself. And then there's the very sort of small percentage of children whose needs might be actually quite a lot more significant, who are very kind of openly, you can see that there's definitely a lot of distress there, who might need external agencies. There's a variety of different ways to gather this information. Obviously, it's made harder by the fact that teachers in many cases might not yet be able to physically see their students, or even if when they're seeing them behind a mask. So you can't actually see these, a lot of the expressions might be hidden. So finding out, first of all, from families who have gone through traumatic experiences, who might have experienced loss, bereavement, all of those things that, those are students that definitely need to be prioritized. In many ways, a lot of, all children would have experienced loss of certain kinds. So, loss of their connections and friendships and things like that. That's what I mean by the universal support that needs to be there for all. But for the ones who've kind of, experienced other things, there's ways of gathering that information. Getting to know the students is absolutely essential. Teachers can pick up on, excessive anxieties, any kind of social isolation, struggling to engage with learning, things like that. There's also a lot of screening tools that have been made freely available to schools to gather information about student well-being and how students feel about things. And that can be administered on a large scale as well.
Definitely. Thank you so much for that, Ms. Nadia. And you did mention that we need universal support. That is, we need friendships, we need peer support as well. And research suggests that, peer support and positive friendships, they boost socio-emotional well-being, academic progress, career success, and everything in students. It has a great influence. And I guess it is one of the life skills, relationship building, conflict resolutions. So how can schools embrace peer networks, as both foundation for helping their students, be it, beyond the pandemic or even before the pandemic? How does the peer support play an important role as a life skill? Dr. Gauri?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question, Afshaan. Life is different for each individual. And the way a parent or a counselor would look at the life of an adolescent is very different from the way the friend, somebody who is of the same age would look at, his or her life. So to develop peer support, I think the life skills that we really need to build in children are the skills of empathy and interpersonal relationships. Now, what happened, I think, during the pandemic was that though there was a lot of online connection, somewhere that quality of actual presence is very different when it's online. So for example, when I'm chatting, at one time, I'm chatting to 10 different people by opening different boxes. Now, what we could probably do to help children support their peers is we could have groups which are homogeneous as well as heterogeneous. Now, what do I mean by homogeneous? we as counselors, teachers, parents, we know that there are certain children who would face certain similar kind of issues. So if we put these children together, they would probably, it would be like a support group for each other where they can share their views. Heterogeneous groups are groups where there are children who have an issue, but somebody else is coping well, because coping is an individual strength. It depends on how I deal with my issue. So probably those heterogeneous groups would help. There could be groups which could be with a teacher or a counselor in that group. Maybe the school could also encourage informal meeting time, keeping social distancing, etc., but unsupervised time, especially for them just to spend time with each other face to face. Because I think after a long time of isolation, again, especially for those who have social anxiety, getting back together would be a little tough. Again, maybe what the teachers and the counselors could do is they could identify students who are naturally empathetic. And there would be individuals in class who would be, and maybe they could become peer educators. So probably make a group of those students, train them in certain strategies which they could go out and they could do with their peers. So I think if you're thinking of peer support, it's really amazing. It's quite amazing and forward looking.
Definitely. So teachers and counselors play a very important role over here in providing that peer support by starting buddy programs in school. And I think teachers are, are not sailing in any different boat. It was definitely hard on teachers as well. Transition from school learning to online learning, then hybrid learning, and now again back to full-time school learning. And teachers have been changing their skills and strategies and trying to fit in to whatever the pandemic got them. So what are some strategies that teachers can now take up now since the schools have reopened? And I think Ms. Nadia, being a teacher trainer, what do you think are some important strategies that teachers can take up to help students sail through this?
I mean, as you said, now teachers are very often cited as the trusted, significant adults who can be positive role models for children. They also have the skills that are needed to support students through difficult times. I think some of the strategies that we need to look at for teachers, first of all, is to look after their own emotional needs, because just like whenever when we travel on the plane, they announce that before you help anybody else with their oxygen mask, you need to put on your oxygen mask first. And so it's the same for self-care, for supporting others. You need to be okay yourself first before you can help others. So teachers need to look after their own emotional needs. We talked earlier about the importance of focusing on establishing and reestablishing routines in the class. That just getting the students back into that whole, routine and structure and all of that. Preparing a safe class environment, which is high both in nurture and structure. Things need to be predictable and organized, especially after this chaotic time. Yeah. So having all of those things, reminding students about safety measures, but also at the same time creating safe opportunities for them to actually rebuild their social relationships. We know that that's absolutely essential. We've spoken about that already. It's important to carve out the time in the day to focus on students' well-being first. So it's important to have that time. I know we keep talking about things like, catching up and all of that. And the reality is that with all goodwill in the world, it's unrealistic to talk about catching up. It's unfair to parents, it's unfair to teachers, it's unfair to students. We need to talk about resetting, and we need to talk about recovery. Yeah, and so the language that we use is very, very important as well. So teachers need to be aware of that, to believe in your students, believe in the fact that they can actually overcome this, that that they can move forward with it. We talked about it's important that they need to slowly build their stamina for learning again. So, it's important to have that in your lesson plan, build in strength and capacity in children and young people, and also help them with transitions by preparing them for changes. That's something that we need to do very early on in children's lives, is to prepare them for changes, because changes are part of our lives. It's something that we need to do preventatively, not wait for something to go wrong before we do it, right? So helping them with transitions and changes and all of that, and also to help students restore and rebuild their friendships and all of that, as we said, because that is known to be a protective factor for students in overcoming adversities and in helping moving them forward.
Definitely. And we can't help but reiterate the fact that take care of yourself first. And when we talk about mental health, counselors are the advocates of mental health in school, and especially in times of pandemic, not just for students, but counselors were comforters for parents and teachers as well. Yet there is a lot of resistance and reluctance for the students to approach counselors, especially in schools. Probably they have this preconceived notion that when they go to a counselor, they might be questioned of what they are going through or what's wrong with them. So how do we talk about breaking the stigma about counseling and approaching a school counselor and taking help? Mr. Prusho?
Yeah, in any system, when we say the stigma or the social dogmas works when it is about mental health, because I remember many times using the word mental itself triggers some kind of surprising or little weird kind of feeling among the people. That is a reality. But then the truth is that in our lifetime, say if we take the life cycle of a human being, at any point of time, there is no one in this world who passes without a mental health issue. It's a fact. Whether it is a psychiatrist or it is a psychologist or it is a person from any profession, any human being, once or the other time, there will be an issue. We all go through it. So the message which need to be communicated to the society is that mental health is just like physical health. When we have a fever, when we have any other issue, we are going to a doctor and we are meeting the appropriate kind of testing and diagnosing procedure and all those things. This is what WHO was also proclaiming from time to time. And since the stigma is not addressed appropriately, what is happening is that everyone is keeping it under the carpet, under hide, and very secretly going to the professionals, or if professionals are not available, very secretly, then that is how the approaching to the quacks and such kind of things are happening. People need to be educated overall. And one good thing what has happened with pandemic is that even though it is slightly different, I can see that there is a lot of recognition all over the world for the mental health profession, and people have started openly coming out and interacting, because it's a huge issue now ever since the pandemic caused. And you can see like online professional companies are thriving everywhere. Better help and such kind of things we can see. When you type something, they are popping up in the net. And working on the stigma is possible only by the acceptance of everyone, whether it is children, right from the small age, we should, inculcate something in our curriculum, whereby some of the developed countries are already having such kind of things right from the small age. They teach about mental health things, and say I've seen places where people learn about the brain and neurology and all at a very young age, and along with that, the psychodynamics or other kind of factors also need to be introduced so that many things can be prevented. For example, somebody is having a little issue and the person is already aware of, and they are immediately taking a step to go ahead and take the help. And mostly what happens is that the comments that is coming from the peer or otherwise, this is what is working as I will not call it as a kind of bullying or anything like that. It might be a very innocent and very normal kind of comment. There is this culture of sarcasm, like to create some jovial environment, people comment. So those kind of comments are actually, if we analyze thoroughly, it is working against the system, of intervention for the counseling scenario or psychiatric scenario and all. So whenever someone is going through, if the people around are viewing it with empathy, viewing it with some kind of support, then they will not feel like passing on such kind of comments. This is what whether it is
I
coming.
think social labeling definitely, sir, is the biggest
labeling. Yes.
the biggest thing, and having the stigma towards mental health, that if I go to a counselor or if I talk about mental health, what would my peers call me? Or they would state me as mentally ill or call me names. I think that's very important, to support each other and be kind. Even a little gesture matters a lot. So and you also did mention that inculcating these values right from the childhood, and parents being playing the most prominent role. How can parents support a child in approaching a counselor? Mostly what I see as my school counseling experience, parents think that my child should be open to me and I can counsel my child, right? So how can we break these notions that it is okay if your child is comfortable in talking to another professional or another adult?
Yeah, you're right. And both of you are right that, despite all material advancements, we are still stuck up about with our negative mindsets about these issues, especially around mental health. And not just in, smaller cities, these this kind of mindset exists even in, posh cities, posh schools in Delhi also. That, one of the counselor was saying that to children feel so constricted that they don't want to be seen coming out of a counselor's chamber because they will be labeled as a mental case. And it's not just children, and unfortunately, they say that the parents are also in a denial mode. That once the school authorities have identified, okay, this problem is there, but the parents are refusing to accept that there is a problem and thinking that, not acknowledging the problem would automatically make it go away. So this is where educating the children as well as parents around mental health is very crucial. And just like, like you said, Mr. Pressure, that if a child has fever, then we drop, if the child has 104 temperature, we drop everything and attend to the fever. Or if you have a stomach ache, then we try to understand why is it that the child is having a stomach ache. So similarly, there are these instances of restlessness or anxiety or incessant crying. So now these are symptoms. The problem lies somewhere. We have to come to the cause of the problem. So this is where educating our children, this is where the role of counselors, the role of coaches, parenting experts come in, where we need to apprise our parents that to don't just solve the symptoms, look at the cause. Where is it coming from? Why is my child restless or is unable to speak? Or if somebody says that my child is reacting so violently, has anger issues, where is this anger coming from? The moment you come down to the problems. The other day, yesterday I was talking to a mother and she said that my child, he's 12 years old and he's so aggressive and he's just uncooperative. And so I started talking to her, and then she said, when he was born, I was very career oriented and I just wanted, how can he restrict my career? So I just said, Mom, you take care of him, I have to get back to work. So I could immediately see what are the vibrations that small baby got right from the beginning, that he's unwanted. So she said that 5-6 years he was away from them. So this is what we as parents need to understand, that where is this problem coming from? And
Definitely. And
most of the time we think that problem lies with the children. And once you trace it back, we realize that it's stemming from somewhere else, from the behavior and the attitudes of the adults around the children.
exactly. Parents, in fact, all the adults act as models
That's
in a child's life, definitely. And the entire home environment, I guess, acts as a catastrophe in a child's behavior. So, Dr. Gauri, how do you think we can have a more positive home environment? What are some of the strategies that they can take up as a family to have a sound mental health? And, lately talks about mindfulness, how effective mindfulness is in having a sane mind. The research has shown that mindfulness helps in socio-emotional well-being and academic success of a student. So how do you think we can practice mindfulness to help the entire family deal with any kind of distress?
Yeah, so that's a very important topic and very, very relevant to today's times. How can we help parents do this? Well, I say this to teachers, but it's very, very relevant to parents as well. We consciously teach what we know.
Seems like Dr. Gauri has some
And if,
connection issue. Are you able to hear us?
yes, I'm able to hear you.
Yes.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Yeah. So, like I was saying, the parent's state of mind often is reflected in the child's state of mind. How does mindfulness help? Mindfulness is all about awareness, first and foremost, of being in the present moment. I was hearing the chairperson's speech, and he was talking about multitasking and how it is so bad for us. So, whenever we talk about mindfulness, I always say that if you were watching somebody balance like 10 things in one hand, what would you say to this person? And do you think this person would be able to do it well? But that's what all of us are doing, parents as well as children. And one very important thing for parents to realize is that the child is always looking at us. So if the child sees us doing something, the child will do the same thing in spite of we saying something else. So getting life skills in our own conduct is the first and foremost thing. And I think where schools can help here is to do life skills training for parents. I'm not saying that parents don't have life skills. What I'm saying is that everybody can benefit from this kind of a training. So training parents, and then mindfulness again is about being, about accepting ourselves, accepting our thoughts. And when I speak to young people, I think one big concern that they express is that elders in the family, parents, or maybe other elders, people in authority, they are always judgmental. Whenever I say something, I feel like they're judging me, and that's a big source of stress for them. Mindfulness is about being non-judgmental, first and foremost about our own thoughts. And when we practice that, it becomes easier for us to be non-judgmental about somebody else. So being present and being non-judgmental, accepting ourselves the way we are, and then fostering the same in our children. How can parents do this? Probably, when you're doing something. So the other day, Ms. Prakruti said that we should help children, we should get them to do chores with us as parents. Now, suppose I'm doing a chore with my child. It's very important that I keep my phone aside and I don't look into it while I'm doing it. And I focus on the joy that I'm getting out of doing whatever it is, whether it is gardening, whether it is painting with my child, whether it is cooking. And I express that to my child and I say that this is what I'm enjoying, and see how relaxed I'm feeling after this. So that sense of awareness, that well-being which comes from focusing in the moment, I think that helps us in everything that we do. And that is a big gift that parents can give to their children. If they are themselves able to be mindful and they're able to sort of pass it on to their children, not teach, but just pass it on through looking, through
Absolutely.
imitation.
Absolutely, absolutely. Ms. Nadia, would you like to add on to that?
Thank you, Afshaan. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think we were talking earlier about, this whole thing around, challenging the stigma around mental health and all the rest of it. I think an important thing that we perhaps need to focus on in terms of, challenging this stigma is to try and normalize it as much as possible. And the way to normalize it is to have regular conversations about it, is to make it part of what happens in schools and at homes in general. So, so for example, if things like, for example, counseling supports are offered to all students from a very young age. So earlier I talked about universal support. So if you have counseling services going into classrooms, talking to students on a regular basis, teaching very young children about things like labeling your emotions, so that children's emotions are validated, they are named, they can talk about them, they will be in a better position to be able to regulate them. And, there we go. We're already talking about well-being, we're already talking about emotions, we're already teaching them how to manage these things, how to deal with these things, and to deal with life events as they happen, with things like mindfulness practices and things like that. There's a whole ton of research that is out there that shows that mindfulness in schools has really, really positive outcomes. There's improvements not just in behavior of students, but in terms of their academic achievements as well. After practicing mindfulness, it improves some cognitive functions like concentration, attention, things like that. So that's all going to enhance their academic learning as well. So, a lot of these things can be put into practice in schools from a very, very young age.
Exactly. And when mindfulness, probably it sounds like a complex word, but mindfulness is nothing but taking a moment to pause, just breathe and see what's going on in your head, in your body and around you. It is as simple as that. And Ms. Nadia, you mentioned that, starting this at a very young age. So I can see in the cameras, there are very young children of class 4th and class 3 who have joined us. Do you think there is a right age to talk about mental health, or how soon can it start?
I'm a strong proponent of, children, very, very young children, toddlers can identify happy, sad, angry, so I think as early as nursery age, we start teaching children about all sorts of things, like, making sure that they go to sleep early, that they exercise, that they, look after what they eat, things like that. That's all part of it, isn't it? That's all part of well-being. So we need to look at well-being as incorporating all these different areas, the balance between our mental health, our physical health, our emotional health. And so these things, I think, can be taught from, honestly, from as early as that, from very, very young children. And you can do it through in lots of different ways. So in nursery age children, right up through early primary, through books, through stories, through nursery rhymes, things, puppets, use of puppets, and teaching children about how to deal with conflict, or how to manage their emotions and things like that. Of course, as they get older, we modify it and make it more age appropriate, but it's something that that we can start at a very young age. And relaxation techniques and things like that, you can start those in nursery even. Get them to lie down, and belly breathing and things like that are wonderful practices to even start at that age.
Absolutely. So this is a message for all the parents over here. If you see any resources or anything on mental health, you need not say, oh, my child is so young, we don't need it, right? It is for each and every one, whatever, despite of the age. Yes, Ms. Prakriti, I see you've raised your hand. Would you like to add something here?
Yeah, you're right. In fact, even I agree that it should start off as young as possible. Mindfulness is something that we need to create to start off in our children as young. And some activities that I encourage parents to do is, like maybe light a candle or a diya and get. So I see these children restless, moving around all the time. So parents come to me and say, how do I make my child sit in one place? And so I tell them this simple exercise: light a candle and get your child, play a game around the candle, and we look at the candle without blinking our eye. So or the diya without. This is a small game, and it's called Tratak in Yoga Vidya, and it builds their concentration. It makes them sit quietly, and it's a game as well. Or maybe if you're out in your garden or in a balcony, get your children to, if you're making them water the plants, so just teach them to watch what happens to the plant when you water, how the leaves perk up, what is happening. It's a very, very minute development that takes place, but get your children to focus on the leaves of the plant, what is happening. You keep talking to them. So when you talk to the plants, when you smile, and so the plants also perk up. So that is how we encourage children to train the antennas inwards. Because right now we realize that constantly the antennas are outwards. Who's doing what is happening, I need this, there's school to be got, homework to be done. So they're constantly training their thoughts outside. So yes, these are small activities and exercises that I...
Thank you so much, Ms. Prakriti, for that small tip to the parents. Every little detail, every little thing matters. As much as I'm enjoying this discussion right now, but since we are approaching close to our time, are there any final comments that you would like to add on? Any final advice that you would like to give our parents, teachers, students, all our audience here? Yes, Prashop, sir.
It's once I take it from you only, Ms. Afshaan, that one of our discussions you were saying that we cannot pour from an empty cup. So all the stakeholders, as I was saying, whether we are adults or children or teacher or parent or counselor or student or management or anyone, all of us need to, first of all, take it as a point that we do something on a regular basis so that our mental health, our well-being is intact. And if we learn that, and then if we practice on a regular basis, it's said that, if I'm okay, my house will be okay, then the people around me will be okay, then my society will be okay, my state will be okay, my country will be okay, and the message of well-being will flourish and everyone will be entitled. So this is what I wanted to say, that let us all together understand. Now, there is no secret. Information is all available to everyone, but identify the right kind of practice, whether it is meditation or yoga or mindfulness. There are a number of things that can really prevent. For example, suppose if we train the children in simple steps like slow breathing exercise right from the early age, it will prevent a lot of things. So if we all take it as a point and we ourselves learn, and then we pass it on, that's it. That is what is the
that's one amazing message to and round up our conversation with Prishop sir. Take care of yourself so that you are in a position to take care of your family, and I think especially women, when we are homemakers, we take our self-care for granted. So please take care of yourselves. And yes, one final comment from Dr. Gowri.
Yes, I just want to share that I've been parents, and it's changed the way I look at schooling. So the question that I to school, and then I ask the teachers, what is the outcome that you're looking from the child when you teach? And I never heard anybody say that I send my child to school to learn maths or get good marks in maths. And I never heard a single teacher say that I'm teaching because I want my student to get 100% marks in history. What we all want for our children is their well-being. So I've been thinking about, this learning loss, which is highlighted during COVID times. But I think if we really want well-being for our children, I think this is the time for all of us to focus on that first. And then academic competence has to follow as a corollary. But if we focus on academic competence, well-being might be compromised. So probably for some, always, but at least for now, please focus on well-being. That is, just think about why we are sending our children to school and let us focus on that. That's all I want to say.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gauri. It's very important to focus on the overall well-being rather than only academics. So with this, I would like to conclude our session today and to add one final gist to our panel discussion. People always say that this pandemic, coronavirus, it was like a punishment and things like that. And such notions, they have spread rampantly and they became the cause of negativity, stress, and despair, especially in the minds of young generation. So, most of them started visualizing this as a full stop to their lives. But I've read it somewhere. This is not a full stop. This is just a comma. It's a way to, it's giving a signal that pause and reflect on your lives, revaluation of your life, seek contentment, be resilient, focus on what we have right now rather than what we can have later or what we have had earlier. So I think such an approach would lead to a healthy mind and will determine how your life will turn out to be positive, more fulfilling, and more positive. So we should remember that this too shall pass. Now soon we are again back to normal. So we pray and hope that not only this experience will enhance us, but it will also make us more resilient to face any challenges that might come in the future. And I'd like to extend my gratitude to our team of panelists over here for their willingness to participate and provide us with such valuable insights and reflecting their vast experience in their field of expertise of mental health. So I'm sure all these resources and will be extremely, extremely beneficial for our entire school community. And the last but not the least, our audience, all the parents, teachers, and students who have joined us and patiently, lend an ear to us for an hour. This shows that you are interested in taking charge of your mental health. And this is the first step towards it. So thank you so much, everyone. Once again, have a great night and wish you a happy World Mental Health Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Afshaan.
Thank you. The children are waving byes at